Welcome to Season 4 of the Biz Show, sponsored by InvestQuire. Discover what's next with this insightful podcast. And now, your hosts, Barry and Lisa.
Well, I am doing wonderful, Lisa.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad to hear it. I know you had a minor surgery a few weeks ago and you got a clear bill of health, right?
I did. They opened up my head. They looked in to look at the brain, said, nope, he doesn't have one. Just close it back up, and here I'm on my way.
Oh, please. You got a big brain in there, which is why we are here teaching everybody about businesses.
I do like that. Absolutely. I like educating people and helping them along the way. First of all, welcome everybody to the Biz Show, right?
Yeah, welcome back. We're so glad to have you again this week, and we're hoping that you tune in and subscribe to our podcast on all platforms. We have audio and now we have video on YouTube, so you get to see Barry's beautiful face.
Oh, Lisa's too. Yours is much better looking than mine. You know, I'm much more of a behind the camera type guy, I think, really. I take horrible pictures. People always go, oh, dang, you smile. Like, so I look like...
I know. I'm like, I give up taking business photos with you because you're never happy unless I'm touching your shoulder or something.
Yeah. Who knows? Well, let's talk about the podcast, right? So today's episode, we're actually going to talk about outsourcing, right? And specifically when you are hiring a company to come in and do a service for you. And we want to talk about some particular things and make sure that you don't get burned from an outsourcing company, because it happens a lot. It's happened to me. It's happened to you, Lisa. Yeah. You know, and so we want to share our knowledge of what we know, what we've experienced in the past with our listeners and viewers so that they can avoid those things.
Yeah, I mean, usually people will outsource because they don't want to hire somebody for the specific duties that they're outsourcing. But it's not just about cost savings. You just have to be very careful and mindful of who you're outsourcing to. Make sure they're a reputable source for you. And it's about their capability to actually carry out the tasks. So there is sort of like an interview process with outsourcing and getting the right people, right?
Absolutely, it is, you know, and you kind of hit on it there, right? So sometimes outsourcing is just a temporary need, right? You just got to get through a hump. Also, it can be, I don't have those skill sets in my employee pool, so I need those skill sets, so we'll outsource. I've done this before when I was at GE Capital, right? As I was building GE Capital, the departments and divisions that was under my control, I started with 3 employees that were full-time at a client site, Xerox. And so when I had other projects to do, I couldn't pull from them because they were, 8 to 5 at Xerox. I went to a temp agency and I had interviewed and found the people I needed to go do the jobs. If I liked them, I hired them. If I didn't like them, then I just went on to the next. But there's that interview process, right? So let's talk about, business outsourcing for several reasons. We talked about this, right? Reducing operating costs, because think about it, right? As you hire an employee and you're going to pay, let's just, what California minimum wage is $20 an hour. So if you're going to pay an employee $20 an hour as a full-time employee, you're not paying $20 an hour. You're paying more like $35, $40 an hour, because you got payroll taxes, you got insurance, you got, a health insurance, dental insurance, life insurance, you've got disability, you've got all these other things, VICA, that you have to tie into their paycheck, that some of it comes from you, some of it comes from them. And when it's all said and done, that employee that cost you $20 is now costing you $35, $40. However, if you go hire a temp or outsource it, you've got, maybe you're paying $25, $30 an hour, still cheaper than paying $40 an hour. So, if you run the math, it's cheaper, or they might have a specialized skill that you need, an expertise. So you can do that. And then just internal teams, sometimes you just don't have enough people to get the job done, right?
Yeah. Yeah, speaking of that, like what would you say you would need to outsource, Barry? Just in knowing you, I know that we do encompass a lot of services, but Where would we need to outsource in a specialty, do you think?
Well, I think as we progress and stuff like that, I think, having our accounting and stuff like that, our payroll, things like that, that way you and I aren't tied up down in our head in the books trying to figure all the numbers out. That would be a good spot. It would also be great to have some admin people that can help us on the backside research things and stuff like that.
Yeah, which brings me to my next point on smart outsourcing. It focuses on those areas that either you're wasting your skills and efforts and strengths on, and maybe you would be able to generate more income if you focus on those activities and not the activities like Barry just mentioned, like bookkeeping or marketing even. I mean, there's so many levels of marketing now with technology and all of the platforms that you could market to and on, which brings me to this story. I was marketing with a company and they were shooting videos of my team and I in different locations to create a YouTube channel like we're doing for the Biz Show, to speak to the buyers out there that are researching different locations to move to or live, by the coastal towns that are beautiful along the Southern California coast. And they were great videos. They were absolutely amazing. They're on YouTube still if you want to catch them on Lisa Marie Manifold, but YouTube channel. But there were some services in there that were promised to me in addition to the videography, and they just weren't surfacing. Like they weren't, I was paying for them, but they were never, there was no follow through. So I felt that outsourcing that marketing wasn't really successful in terms of like the entire package. So be careful. Make sure you do have some agreements that are written and in place when you're choosing a person to handle an aspect of your business or a specialized focus for you, because you do want to make sure that you are outsourcing to the right person. And we can't say that enough on this podcast. So we also want to outsource to non-core operational functions because we are the
Yes.
company and we want to make sure that we know how our company is being run. We can't just give the whole company over to somebody, even though at some days you want to do that, right? We get overwhelmed and burdened by all the tasks that and hats that we wear as a business owner, and we just want to like say you run the company, but that could be a horrible idea because your company is not going to result in the in the carry out of the vision that you may have, and that person may be doing things I've heard of companies getting embezzled from and things like that, firsthand. It's horrible stories that happen. So yeah, be careful that you're not handing over the activities or like your bank account, to a payroll company. Just be very careful that you're vetting them properly. But IT support, payroll processing, marketing, execution, some follow up with customer service with your CRM and database. Those are like some maybe automatic drip campaigns that you can have implemented by an outsourced company. Those are some of the key things that you want to outsource on.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of things there, Lisa. The things to drive home are this, right? First of all, make sure that you don't outsource your core business, right? So you know that, as you said, nobody knows that better than you and your employees, right? So if that's your core, then why are you outsourcing it? It's not your core then, right? And then, lastly, if you're going to outsource customer service, be careful because they're going to be working off of scripts, right? They don't know your business. They don't know your employees' strengths. They don't know you or anything. So all they're going to do is they're going to have a script in front of them and they're going to read off of that script. So you got to be very, very careful. And what that's going to do is in the long run, that's going to hurt your reputation. Customers are going to get angry and upset.
That's
So,
yeah.
but yeah, you drove home some really good core things there for sure. Let's talk about when outsourcing goes wrong, because it does go wrong. You and I both have experiences in that. But one of the key things, and the you got to really point the finger at yourself, right? Number one is because you need to have that oversight, and if you aren't using that oversight to make sure that things are done a very specific way geared towards your company, then shame on you, right? So owners assume the vendors are going to just manage everything. And they're not, right? As you said, when you had the marketing person,
Yes.
you didn't get everything that you were expecting to get. It was
Exactly.
promised to you, here's what you're going to get, Lisa, and you got half of that, or
Correct.
75%, whatever, right? And
Correct.
then you don't, the next thing that you don't have, what goes wrong is you don't have any way to grade them, to monitor them, to have some type of a metrics in place for them to perform against.
Because you're outsourcing that task. And so you're not really monitoring it as closely as you should because you were doing it to begin with, and then you're, handing it off to somebody else. So yeah,
Yeah, exactly. And you're expecting them to come to the table with their own monitoring. Shame on you. You should have the
scheduling,
monitoring performance and schedule. Yeah, exactly. Right.
making sure that you
So,
are that time block with like clear communication and having them come to the table with a report.
right. So do your due diligence and talk to 3 or 4 different outsourcing companies and take a look at what they offer, what the prices are. But don't necessarily settle on the lowest and the cheapest outsourcing company. Maybe there's a reason they're the cheapest, right?
Exactly. You pay for what you get.
Let me ask a question because we talked about customer service up above, and now we're talking about the cheapest service. Well, okay, if you're going to outsource your customer service or your call center, right? Where are most of the call centers located nowadays?
Well, they're in other countries, so there could be a language barrier that it doesn't effectively translate to your customer base. So
Exactly.
very, very, very frustrating. And then you're going to get very low results.
Exactly. And is that critical to you? Well, everyone I've talked to, it is very critical, right? Because a lot of customers get frustrated when they call their bank and they're talking to somebody overseas that can barely speak English and they can't make it out. It's very, very difficult. And we live in a world now where you don't really get to talk to humans too often anymore. Most of the time you're talking to a robot, an AI, or again, somebody outsourced overseas.
That's right.
So, the communication piece is really, really bad, right? It's just poor, right? And then as far as poor communications, the communications between you and the outsourced company, you got to have that communication, right? You got to have a clear
Yeah.
message going out and a clear channel for them to come back to. Some type of a weekly reporting schedule or something like that. And then lastly, the loss of institutional knowledge. And
Mhm.
that's key, right? So knowledge is everything. Again, you know everything about your company. Your
Yeah.
employees probably know half of what you know. What do you think the outsource company knows? If you
Not,
know everything about it,
yeah.
your employees know half. I can guarantee you that that outsource company probably knows 10%.
Yeah. And maybe they have the skills to be able to effectively administrate your tasks, but they may not have the knowledge in your specified industry. So I have run into that myself in terms of hiring an assistant that had, a very great resume in terms of managing companies and so forth, but no knowledge in real estate. And so there was an up curve of me teaching those things. So I lost a lot of time having to teach the systems, teach the back end about the industry in order for them to effectively be a manager or an assistant to my team. So there was a huge lag time in that. And so I'm not saying that that doesn't work. It could work if you do have the time to invest in training, but it's just so much easier when somebody does come to the table with those the knowledge and the skills in the specific industry, right?
Specifically, and that's why you are the real estate broker and I am not, right? And I don't really dabble in your real estate side. And I work on the M&A, the management, and all that side.
Right.
And that's where we work well together because we know our boundaries. I know you're the expert. If it's real estate wise or something like that, go to Lisa, talk to Lisa.
Yes. We'll have a great conversation about that. Uh,
Yes.
and then outsourcing strategically too early could also hurt your business because maybe you're just not ready to be outsourcing it. Maybe you still need to roll up your sleeves and effectively manage your company in all aspects before you outsource it. So you have to be at a place where you're really comfortable and confident about what you are going to hand off to somebody else, because you don't want any of the messages that you're delivering to your consumer conflict what you've already built. So if you have product development and you're doing it a certain way and then you're outsourcing it and they do it a different way, the product that you're delivering may end up being different or less satisfying to the consumer. And then Now you have like damage control to do and trying to retrieve that customer base that you had in your pipeline. So just be careful about doing that too early, so that you're keeping your customer base, consistent and growing, and not, you're not having to backtrack and repair anything that was outsourced too early or to the wrong people. And also
Right.
that kind of ties into the brand messaging, because you are the brand. And so if you outsource to somebody else that doesn't effectively reflect your brand, then you're doing it too early. And again, you're choosing the wrong person. So you have to build your brand. It takes time, and you want to make sure you're investing the time in that. I give it, like, I say 18 months is the minimum in like establishing your brand and having that consistency. And consistency is very much a key part of having your brand recognized by the consumer or by your target audience. So if you're switching gears and outsourcing to somebody else, they may, like, just organically or maybe subconsciously be putting their brand into play and then moving you away from the brand that you're trying to establish. And that's happened to me
Exactly.
a long time ago.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
and you mentioned a good point. If you start too early, you might not even know what your product is yet. You're still developing it, right? As you said. So how do you pivot, right? We use that word all the time, but how do you pivot? If all of a sudden it's not working, how do you even know it's not working? Because you've outsourced it, they're taking care of it, not you. So you might not even get the knowledge that it's not right, it's not working, because they just want to get it done as spec'd out by you, and they're not going to tell you, oh, this ain't going to work. And
exactly.
then and then regarding the customer relationship, if you start too early, who owns that relationship? Do you really own that relationship, or does the outsourced company really own that relationship? They might have a better relationship than you.
Yeah, that's a good point there, because I have, a team of agents, and I allow them access to my customers so that they
Hmm.
could stay in touch and help me, leverage that. And I outsource those tasks to them to keep our name in front of them. Obviously, it's my name that they know, but they are doing some of the follow up, the calls, checking in and things like that. And I've come to find out that there's a disconnect. And so the only person really that the customer wants to hear from is me, because they trusted me with a huge financial investment in their lifetime. And so they're a little bit hesitant, like, okay, yes, you work with Lisa Manifold, but I don't really know you. And so the customer relationship management is really does fall on my shoulders, and I have to be the one that does follow up. They could do some of the background tasks, like, contracts and things like that, administrative or marketing tasks, but really that customer relationship, if that person hired you because they love you and trust you, you have to continue the relationship. You have to put the time in, and that's where the dollars will, reflect your efforts. And so those are the strengths that we talk about. You maybe need to continue to maintain where you're strong at, where it could be that relationship, that communication, that branding that you're delivering, where all of these other outsourcing tasks could be something that is more in the background and not in the forefront. So,
Exactly. Like the drip campaigns, they can set all that up and send it out, but it's all going to come back to you for the voice and stuff
yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly.
And they won't even know that you outsourced it. They'll think that you're doing everything right. That's what you
Well,
want.
yeah, because it's coming from your domain and everything and stuff like that. So, yeah, definitely.
Well, what you have
Well,
a real life story with a company that got burned. You want to talk about that?
I, yeah, I have many stories, and I know that you've got one or two yourself. But I've worked when I said GE Capital, right? We had a lot of customers, and in the past we had a mid-sized technology company that outsourced their entire customer support overseas. We're talking early 2000s and stuff like that, when outsourcing overseas was kind of just getting started. And they did it. Why did they do it? Cost, right? So you can pay an employee here in the United States. And well, at the time, you were going to pay them, yeah, 18, $20 an hour. Over there, you were going to pay $4 or $5 an hour. So look at that, and all of a sudden there's big dollar signs in their CEO's eyes. Going, ooh, I can save all this money, and I can
Yeah.
buy that new yacht I want to buy next year instead of having to wait 5 years. The other thing is they'll ramp up 24-hour support, and then
Mm.
they promise, as you say, quick implementation and stuff like that. However, there's no brand knowledge. There's no uh, um, yeah, there's 24 hours, but they can't implement anything because again, they're reading off scripts. But here's what happened, right? So this company, they outsourced, they pulled all their people off of, actually they laid a lot of their people off, which I was told them don't do this, but they did. Well, anyways, that company is no longer in business anymore. It was a big IT company, but they ruined their reputation so badly they couldn't recover from it.
Yeah.
Because their customer service, it was IT company, right? So when you call the customer support, you got an IT tech over in another country.
Yeah.
Their English was poor, broken English badly. Number two, they were very abrasive and a matter of fact and just rude sometimes to the customers and stuff like that, right? Um, yeah, this IT company could not recover. They ended up going bankrupt, shutting the company down. Another company come in and bought them out. They couldn't even fix it, even
That
though
is
they pulled everything back.
that is such a sad story because you spend all of your hard, sweat, blood, and tears building the company, and then one mistake like that could just ruin you forever. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously their reputation suffered. They weren't able to rebuild it. Their internal, structure like really lost the morale, and the department just internally, was destroyed, right, amongst the culture and all the players involved. And the cost savings ended up costing them a lot more than the upfront savings. It cost them a lifetime of business, and so that's really where the situation just went bad, and that's so
yeah,
unfortunate. And that
and
almost
and the,
like that's why when Barry mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, like having a schedule where you're like checking in with your outsourcer, having them deliver you documentation and tangible items of what they have been working on, and then maybe you checking in on your customers and seeing if that person like is doing the right services by you, by your company, by your name, by your branding, and getting feedback. We always ask you to get feedback and surveys, and reach out to your customers and ask them what you're doing right, what you're doing wrong, because then you'll be able to make a very quick pivot or decision to change course to effectively save the relationship with your customers. And I mean, I have to do that on a daily basis because there's so many players in a real estate transaction, and another real estate agent on the other representing the other party could ruin my reputation with my client because they're not effectively doing their job, like following the letter of the contract, the timelines of a deal, and their buyer is just not performing to the letter of the deal. So I have to like navigate through that and make sure my client doesn't get mad at me because the other agent is not doing their job effectively. And so there's a lot of like, preventative damage that you should be doing when you are outsourcing or are dealing with other partners or parties that are, helping you get to the finish line, because it could damage your reputation permanently. And those are relationships you don't want to lose.
right, definitely so. Yeah, and funny thing is this company was in business for 15 years before they made that decision,
Wow. Yeah, that's such a shame. It
and
hasn't
and
worked
they
out.
they
That's
were making millions of dollars a year.
Yeah. But one wrong turn like that, I mean, you could be ruined. I mean, me partnering up with another agent on my team could have ruined my reputation if I would have
Hmm.
kept him on the team.
Right.
It's just you are blindsided because you're just so like busy with other tasks, and you're still thinking your company's thriving and going to survive. But something like that, if you don't have your hands on it and you're not keeping track of what that person is doing, yeah, it could be over like that overnight.
I've said this before, I'll say it again. You, as a business owner, as the CEO, whoever you are, should never, ever, ever manage from an ivory tower, right? Get out, get down in the trenches, talk to your employees, talk to your customers, see what's going on. I made an effort every single day to step out of my office, walk the floor, talk to certain employees, not certain employees, but talk to a group of employees this day and then talk to a different group this day. But I would go around and in a month, I would talk to every single employee in the
Yeah.
company. What's
Yeah.
going on? How's things going for you? Do you have all the tools you need? What problems are you having? And some of my vice presidents are like, well, Barry, these are my. I understand they're your employees, but you don't always get the information disseminated up to you, as neither do I. So if I walk it, I go with it. Sometimes I go on calls with employees and
Yes.
meet with the customers directly and stuff like that, right? So
Lunch with them, have a cup of coffee, take them out of the office environment. You'll learn so much about what they know or heard or who they're speaking
yeah,
to and or how they you could be tipped off on something that you could easily correct. So that's, integrating yourself into the workforce, into your partners, into the even with your outsourcers. I mean,
yep,
definitely take time
yep,
to
definitely.
yeah. So how do we outsource correctly? I mean, we just kind of touched on that right now. We talked about engaging with your people.
Yeah, definitely. So you have to maintain ownership, right? You have to be the owner of your company. You have to have ownership of that outsourced relationship. You
Yeah.
need to provide oversight on their performance. And then you need to have the authority to say yes or no. This is working, this isn't working, change it, whatever the case might be, right?
Yeah. So let's jump into step one. You want
Yeah,
to define your clear objectives. So before you're outsourcing, please ask them, what problem here are we solving? Well, you're asking that of yourself, right? What problem
right.
are we solving? What results do we expect to receive? And what are the metrics? How do you define that? Like, what is going to need to be implemented? So definitely know those three key things so that you can figure out like who you're going to outsource to.
Yeah, that's number one. Number two is um, evaluate, do your interviews, do your due diligence, right? Check the vendors' track records, right? Check client references. If a client doesn't give you references, that should be a red flag for you, right? Also, what's their industrial experience? If I'm an IT company, why would I hire a customer service company that does healthcare?
Yeah.
Right? It does not make sense. So
Yeah.
make sure that they are in your industry, and never, ever, ever just go on pricing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, step three is to establish measurable performance metrics. And so you'll want to know like what are their response times. Look at those testimonials and see if like you have a similar testimony or reference that points to something positive about them, whether it be response times, what is their error rates, like do they have any bad reviews in their testimonies? Definitely take a look at the good and the bad and to see if the bad is something that's a deal breaker for you or not. Project deadlines, do they perform to what they promise, right? The deadlines, the timeframes are crucial in effectively carrying out the tasks that you're hiring them for in order to get paid, right? We all need the payday. So project deadlines are extremely important. A client will hire the manifold team. They're looking to sell by a certain date. And they don't want you to lie to them and say, oh, I could sell the house in a week, because then you're going to have damage control to do. So I don't want to misrepresent any facts. We want to give a clear picture of the expectations. And even if they're not, the right answer for them, I mean, you want to hear that feedback. You want to learn from what maybe this outsourcer knows something about the market or industry that maybe you're you don't have the knowledge. So if they're giving you the truth, that's essential. That you want to be able to effectively work alongside them, knowing that you have this clear vision of what your obstacles may be. And
Yeah,
also, yeah, look at their quality scores. Like, we have some Zillow reviews and we get a 5 star, this and that. So check it across the board so you're not missing any key information that's available to you. Now we have everything online. You could find out anything about anyone. So yeah, it's at your fingertips. And if you don't know how to do that, you can always reach out to us.
I'm taking notes. Um, so number four, right, is again oversight, right? You have to maintain that control, right? And you need to either, if you're not going to do it, assign a reliable employee, manager, vice president, whatever they are, that manages that relationship. They will become the ambassador for that one relationship. And you should, if you got more than one, then you should have more than one employee managing those relationships, right? You shouldn't have the same employee trying to manage all five, six, seven different relationships. So make sure that you do that, because each one's going to perform different. Performance monitoring again is key. And then again, we've talked about this a couple of times already. Communication, right? Needs to come both ways. If they're not giving you weekly status reports or daily status reports or their call reports or anything like that, you need to have a serious conversation with them because you need to know what's going on. You
Just
know,
cut time. Yeah.
yeah, if you got a product and you're selling that product and there's complaints with that product, they're going to the call center and then they're dealing with it, but they don't report back what's wrong. How can you fix it? How can you fix something that you don't know is broken?
Yeah. Step five is probably one of the most important things is to protect your intellectual property because you're going to probably be having to give them passwords to certain things in order to carry out the task and duties that you're hiring them for. And so make sure that your contracts do include confidentiality clauses so that they're not, giving all of your secrets to a competitor down the street. You definitely want to protect that and have that agreement put in place up front and have them sign it with a date. Data security requirements. Oh my gosh, it's just like again, access to your financials and your social security number, your EIN number. Those are very important things that I mean, when we get mail and we don't typically throw it away, we shred it. I mean, if you're going to outsource them for a period of time or decide not to work with them anymore, change your passwords, change all of that to protect your data. And keep your security in place of all of that. And then the ownership of your deliverables. I mean, definitely protect the key aspects of your private and confidential aspects of your business.
You said something there, and it kind of just hit a note with me as well, right? And that was, um, what was it? Oh, checking uh, the customers that they work with. Make sure they're not working with your competition, right? So I would get a customer list of who are your customers, and if you're an IT company and you see two other IT companies on their list, you might go, oh, well, that's really cool. Well, maybe it's not really cool because are they doing the same things that you're doing? And is that information being passed back and forth? You need to be careful of that, right? So you got to watch that. Let's talk about what works best, right? So the things that really you need to do is this. If you want it to be effective, you need to make sure that you are giving them tasks that are repeatable, not one-off tasks and stuff like that. Because if it's a one-off task, nobody knows what that solution is. They got to work through that problem. You
Yeah.
need to give them the mundane, the boring things to do, right? The things that your employees do day in and day out, and they're bored and they're tired of it, but it's the same thing. So you
Yeah.
can get rid of that, get your employees working on some fun stuff while you pass that boring stuff off and the repeatable stuff off to your whoever you're outsourcing to, right? Make sure that you've defined their steps and what they need to do and stuff like that. And then again, we've said this so many times in this podcast, but monitor them, right? Measure them. Make sure that their performance is meeting your criteria.
That's right.
So
Yeah.
examples, again, we talked about, well, bookkeeping, right? Accounting, payroll, IT maintenance, maybe, you know,
Cybersecurity.
yeah, yeah. There are a lot of things in IT that can be outsourced.
There's
And
so much in digital marketing that we don't
yeah,
know. That's not our field of expertise. Like there's algorithms, there's how to put catchy phrases. I mean, I'm learning that with the young guys on my team doing marketing online because they know how to do it to get the view count. I mean, Barry, we can learn from them. There's just so many little tiny little strategic tips like when to post it, what time of day, like all of it. So
on what
marketing,
day to post it? Yeah, not you don't want to
yeah,
post on a Friday.
yeah, you're not going to be as effective as somebody that does have the specialty and the knowledge and the research already done in that specific area. So don't try to do it yourself, even though it's hard to take the time to find the right person to outsource to. Definitely outsource those things that could be maybe more efficiently and produce better results for your company administrated. So yeah, I mean, you try to do everything as a business owner, but you don't have to because now there's people that really are offering services based on performance. Maybe you could outsource to them, and based on the performance of their activities, then they get paid. So there's so many ways to outsource. It's amazing. So, and if you need
Yeah.
any references I mean, we have a list of vendors that we work with, and so I'd be happy to share that with you, so you don't have to go digging through Yelp or online and finding one that is going to be a good, reputable company to work with.
You know, you'd be surprised what you get if you just ask.
That's right. Everyone's afraid to ask. They think they have to figure it out.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, so what are some pro tips here, right? So tip number one, start small. Start with a small piece of whatever your business is, and then, work your way up to larger projects. Test the vendors out on pilot programs and stuff like that, and make sure that they're reporting back to you as you want them to report back, as expected, right? So that's tips actually one, two, and three.
So tip 4 would be build strong vendor relationships, and communication matters. We've been saying that all throughout the podcast today. It matters in all aspects, right? Pro tip 5, keep strategic decision making inside the company. Don't lean on your outsourcer too much when they're not even affiliated with the company directly. So keep that in your wheelhouse and do not give them all of the information that you have at hand. Just remember that they're not, in your company until you actually hire them.
Right.
Next
Lisa,
up,
what are some of the things that they should avoid?
oh gosh, here we go. Don't outsource your core leadership decisions. Don't rely on them to make decisions for your company. Choose your vendors solely on price. I mean, you're going to get what you pay for. That's written in stone and um,
Hmm.
pudding. The lack of oversight or accountability. So you're not giving them proper, you're not doing your proper job as a leader. You're not checking in with them. You're not holding them accountable to the things that they promised. Weak contracts or unclear deliverables, that again falls back on you. So make sure that you have those things in place. And ignoring the customer impact. Again, asking your customers if they're happy, checking in, take somebody to lunch or coffee and see if they're pleased with your services still, and always, check in and get that feedback.
Yeah. You mentioned one in there, number four, right? Weak contracts and stuff like that. A couple seasons back, I can't remember what season, but we've had some podcasts in regards to contract negotiations and even just contracts in general. Definitely, I would suggest going back and looking at those over, or listening to those, or seeing, well, those are listening to because they're not part of season four
You
here
have
yet.
YouTube back then. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. But we do have those out there for you. And of course, you can always call us. Lisa and I will be more than happy to review some contracts with you and stuff like that. We are not attorneys, number one, right? Got to throw that disclaimer out there. However, we've seen our fair share of contracts and we know what should be in them and what shouldn't be in them.
Yes. So we're going to wrap it up. We thank
It's a
you all
wrap.
for listening, and we always ask you to please subscribe, whether you're listening on audio or video on YouTube. We have all of our episodes now uploaded to our YouTube channel, The Biz Show, and we also have a website,
We
www.
do. Investquire.com. Yeah, perfect.
Yeah, so please
All right, guys.
reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Yes. Bye, guys. Go make some money.
Thank you all for listening to The Biz Show podcast. Subscribe to stay updated and follow Barry and Lisa on Facebook at The Biz Show. Share your comments or suggest business topics that you'd like to hear. Thank you all for listening. Bye.